got to eat here. Howdy, ma'am. How you doing today?
Hot, and I don't mean the good kind. So what don't you want?
Pardon?
What don't you want?
Oh, well, I think I'll just,
You know, I've been working here for 44 years. Ain't nobody ever ordered nothing but T-bone steak and a baked potato. Except this one asshole from New York tried to order trout back in 1987. We don't sell no damn trout.
This hearing needs to be in the public eye. For the court to allow the prosecutor to say, we need to keep this all private for a fair trial, really ignores the public nature of this case. It really ignores the fact that Brian has been essentially convicted in the media. You don't have to read but a few articles to see how negative they are about him. He has a right to have this information withheld, brought out in public, so that people can see it's not this neat little package. So people can start to wonder if Brian's innocent. Your Honor, Brian is innocent. Your Honor, Brian is innocent.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
Listen to Pavarotti. Can I be your superhero?
Hello, welcome to The Revealing. I'm your host, Pavarotti, and I'm here to discuss the Idaho 4 case. And I've been putting this one off for about a week now, but I think it's time that we really dive in on Bethany in the case and how impactful things are around that situation. I put out a video about a week ago when the new docs were released as I was going through reading them, and we seen some really interesting possibilities around Bethany. And I think it's time that we really slow this thing down a little bit. And I'm going to let you know what I feel like happened between the atrocity and the 911 call, using the laws of probabilities and all the evidence that we have at our fingertips in this situation. And we've done a lot of investigating over the last few years. Some things have become apparent, some things have shown itself to us. So I think when we take all those things that we now know, things that we have suspected, and we start putting it all together, I believe it gives us a real idea of what happened between the atrocity and the 911 call and how huge it would be for this information to hit. Because when you talk about reasonable doubt in a case against somebody that they literally have zero evidence, the more I dive into this thing, the more I'm astounded daily. I mean, there's times throughout this thing where I thought to myself, well, I mean, maybe they've got the right guy. Maybe he was part of it. And I would come up with different things that tried to connect him in some way. Until everything was released, I couldn't have possibly known how wrong we all were. I mean, no evidence whatsoever, excluded from everything. The little fragment of DNA that I do not believe is Brian Kohberger's DNA. And that being the only thing that ties him to the case. When we looked at the vehicles, they were wrong on every single one. I've got a lot to bring to you on that, but I know people get bored at me pointing out the discrepancies in the vehicle. But I've come to a couple of conclusions. Number one, the vehicles that they see on Ridge Road that they try to identify everything with is not even an Elantra, and I'll prove that beyond a shadow of a doubt. And I'll bring that to you soon. But also the vehicle in the neighborhood we now know is not an Elantra either. New information made itself available to us on that. The whole Hyundai Elantra aspect of this case was all wrong from the beginning. So that was the only other piece of evidence tying Brian Kohberger to the crime. When you remove that, what are you left with? What, did somebody else picked him up and drove him over there? Well, the state's case is not that. The state's case, the reason they even have Brian Kohberger as a suspect is because he drove a Hyundai Elantra. When you take the Elantra out of the crime, you take Kohberger out of the crime. I don't care what that fragment of DNA said. And that's a fact. But to get closer to the truth of the matter of what happened, we got to dive in on those roommates and the likely scenario around that. So I'm going to go ahead and briefly tell you what I think, based on all the evidence, actually happened in this situation. And I'm having a lot of time, a lot of trouble even trying to think my way out of this. But it's become very apparent to me. This is my humble opinion. This is my interpretation of the evidence. This is what I think happened. Let me know if you agree. Also, Opab did the ultimate do not do when you have a YouTube channel about, it's been a couple of weeks now. For years, I never even looked at my settings in YouTube, but a few weeks ago I said, I wonder what these settings do. So I go through my settings and I start changing settings. It turns out once you do that, you reset your algorithm on your channel. You change any settings in YouTube, it is a no, turns out. So I noticed since then my videos have a whole new algorithm. They don't put them out. Most people don't even know that I'm even doing videos. So do me a favor. I've got to rebuild. There's only one way to do it, and that's to rebuild your algorithm. If everybody wouldn't mind commenting in the comments on this video, I would appreciate it. I've got to rebuild my algorithm to get, the information out to more people. That's the only way it's going to fix it. I can't just go in and unclick it because it'll reset the algorithm again, turns out. Whoops. But let's dive into what we're doing now, though. Please like and comment. Comment, I guess, is the biggest way. Okay, so to get the most accurate information whenever we're diving into things like this is to take timelines. And, I always like to do a timeline. And in this one, the timeline that I'm going to focus on is between 4:29 a.m., because that's when we know the black Ford Explorer pulls in. And I know I have people say, well, how do you account for Eric Gower saying he's seen the Ford Explorer? Well, if you listen to Eric Gower's statement, Eric Gower didn't see the red Jeep. So I don't think his statements is as credible as what we've put together with the actual video and the recreation. You see, if that black Ford Explorer would have been in that driveway when Eric Gower pulled out, he wouldn't have showed up in the windows of that house, 1119, showing him pull out of the driveway. The only way you can pull out of that driveway and be in those windows is if there is no black Ford Explorer there at that time. So we know through physical evidence now and deep dive research that black Ford Explorer pulled in at 4:29, and that is a fact. So we take that time frame, 4:29, when the black Ford Explorer pulls in, and we go all the way until 11:56 a.m. when the 911 call was made. Now, here's what we know. The King Road neighborhood, as we look at it from this view, is the house right here at 1122 with Dylan and Bethany both in the house. Right here is the camera at 1119 that basically gives you a view of this area right here. We've all watched this camera for hours upon hundreds of hours, and we never see Dylan and Bethany walk this way, and there's no way for us to identify any vehicles that they may have got in that went this way, and there isn't any vehicles around the 429 mark that pulls out this way other than the 424 that pulls out from over here that was a likely perp. So them going this way out of the neighborhood, I think, is very improbable based on the evidence that we have. So when I look around to where they would have likely gone, leaving the house after 429, which I think is very probable that they did, I've got to look at where their friends live. And, their friends live over here in the White's apartments. And their friends specifically, I'm talking about Hunter, Emily, and Josie. So if that is their closest friends, and that just happens to be the same friends that show up for the 911 call, then I would have to think them coming over here would just be a reverb of what would have happened earlier. And that is them simply walking straight down to their apartment. And then when the 911 call happens, they all just go back to the house. That seems to be the most likely scenario. Then we listen to their statements they give law enforcement, and all of them just happen to be awake between 3 and 5 a.m. Too much of a coincidence there for me. Their friends live here. They can just walk right there. They're all up during that time for some reason. and then they all walk back together and make the 911 call is what I believe happened. Now, it's Bethany, though, that I believe is the key to all of this, and we've all known this since the very beginning, because Bethany seems to even have different reactions than the rest of them once the 911 call is made. We'll talk about that more here in a minute. But then we also have the new document that shows the defense was questioning Bethany around her iPad. So when I look at this timeline from 4:29 a.m., when I know that black Ford Explorer pulls in, and then I focus in on Bethany, just so happened from that time, 4:29 to 4:31, Bethany places 2 calls to Maddie and 2 calls to Kaylee. Then there's about a 3-minute time period of lapse between that and 4:34 a.m. when she accessed Snapchat, and a few minutes later, Instagram. And then we know she starts making calls to her father at 7:30 a.m. And just a little while later, the 911 call is made. Here's what I believe happened. I believe that 429 Black Explorer was likely driven, in my humble opinion, by the brother of one of the victims in the case. I can't prove that. I'm not accusing him of anything, but that's what I believe happened based on the fact that we never seen any location data for his phone. They never downloaded his phone. He said his phone was broke or lost, and he's the only one in the case that was involved around this time that they did not put any effort into finding his phone for some reason, which you think they would do, considering they got his sister's phone and did it. But if I am correct, and he was the one that pulled up in the black Ford Explorer at 4:29, we hear the roommates, at least one of them, come out of the house when this vehicle pulls up. And it's curious to me that if I'm right, he pulls up at 4:29, I believe what would have happened is he would have told the roommates to stay outside because he is a brave young man, and he would have gone in to see what happened to his brother, certainly, and the rest of them. So while he's inside seeing what happened, that looks like the exact time that Bethany would have been outside and made 4 calls, 2 to Maddie and 2 to Kaylee. While he's inside checking what happened, he comes out, says, y'all go to your friend's house. I'm going to, don't tell anybody anything. I'm going to contact either the authorities or the university or maybe both to see what the next step is for them to do. So there's about a 3-minute time lag from that point, which is just about exactly how long it would take for her to walk from the King Road residence to her friend's place at the White's apartments. And then she just so happens to, at that time, access Snapchat and a little bit later Instagram. Time passes until she calls her father and her mother, and then a little bit more time passes until that 911 call. That's what I believe happened. So, they walk about 3 minutes to their friend's apartment. Their friends testify that they were all awake for some reason during this time. I think it's pretty cut and dry to me. Then, after all of that, they all go right back to the King Road residence to dial 911. The big issue in all of this apparently could be this iPad of Bethany's. Because I believe that when this happened, if I'm correct, Bethany took the iPad with her from the King Road residence to her friend's place. Now, the next thing that I believe happened is when they went back for the 911 call, Bethany didn't bring her iPad with her. She actually left it there. And I think there's evidence to back that up. And that could be the crux of the matter as it relates to this thing. Because we know that the defense special expert was going to be questioning the use, activity, and movement on Bethany Funk's iPad. And that's what they were going to testify about. And the use, activity, and movement on Bethany Funk's social media activity. So I think these two things probably go hand in hand. The social media activity that they were going to testify about that showed use, activity, and movement was probably done on Bethany Funk's iPad, which would have shown the use, activity, and movement, which would have been a way to verify the findings on the iPad and the social media if they put both of those together. So if Bethany took that iPad with her over to her friend's place and left it there, that would be, a nail in the coffin on the situation after the atrocity. So, in the end, it's always going to be these two that give this case away. But in this one, we're going to focus strictly on Bethany, because if she did take that iPad to her friend's place, she didn't bring it back over there, and I think there's evidence to prove both. Many times I've had people point this out to me. This is the most suspicious thing about the 911 call, and this is the one that really lets you know who the weak link in all this is. You can see this is Nunez getting out, and he's going to approach the house, and we see this figure over here by the pole. It's not too hard to figure out who this figure is that's by this pole, and they're for some reason not like the rest of them. They don't want any part of what's about to happen, it appears. And that person by the pole can only be Bethany. But when we really dive in and we look at Bethany over here by this pole, something else becomes apparent. Because as you can see, as Nunez begins to head towards the King Road residence, everybody else seems to be standing closer and have a different demeanor than Miss Bethany. And I wonder why that is. But we can all tell now that we've got Dylan, Josie, Emily, and their friend there. I can't remember his name just off the top of my head. And then we also know that the only other person in this group is going to be Mr. Hunter Johnson. And you see that as Nunez moves closer to the residence, because Hunter is going to be standing in the doorway right here. And he's going to, of course, have his hands on his head. And it's just interesting to me that Bethany's all the way across the street standing at that pole, not really wanting to even participate in any of this. Okay, and then there is Hunter. So that's curious to me. It's very curious to me. And we can see from this angle that looks like Bethany has her hands in her pockets and she doesn't have an iPad with her. Tells me that iPad's still over there at her friend's place. But the only way I know to verify this is to do what we've done throughout this case, and that is investigate. So when we take the photos of Bethany's room right after the law enforcement arrived, the earliest photos we can get of Bethany's room, if her iPad, that obviously the defense has some questions about because of movements of it, if she did not take it with her, which we can assume that she did, and she didn't bring it back, then, it would be in the bedroom here, right? So as we go through all of the photos of Bethany's bedroom, now there's a phone. Look here, is that an iPad? No, that's not an iPhone or an Apple cord, so that's likely some other brand of phone, so that's not it. We should see Bethany's iPad somewhere in her room if she didn't take it with her to her friend's place. She obviously didn't bring it back, so it's either in her room or it's still over at her friend's place at this point. But let's go through and just verify. Can we see an iPad anywhere in Bethany's room that maybe she had left there? I'm not seeing anything. There's some White Claws, a lot of clothes. Let's see what's on the desk here. Show off of books, or I guess this is still in the closet. I don't see any iPads. I'm not seeing any cords for an iPad either. So here's clothes, more clothes. They're all over this closet here. I don't see anything that even resembles an iPad. There's a box down there. Now here's some cords. That looks like that. Now that could be an Apple cord there maybe. What about in these? Let's see. We've got her hair care stuff. Here's her jewelry. This is all on the desk there. Hair clips. There's some more beer cans, wine bottle, Bush beer, whole bunch of alcohol. There's Bass Pro. There's a Kodak camera. Well, I'm not seeing anything. That's a little purse in there. It looks like with the ribs. What do we got here? Nothing. Scissors. There's a spiral notebook. That's not an iPad. Remotes. More wine. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm not seeing any iPad. There's a cord for something right there hanging by the bed. Oh, look at there. Now that could be an iPad cord right there, but I don't see any iPad attached to it. Could be an Apple cord for a phone as well, or it could be used for both. Now here's a white cord going up to the top here, but no, I'm not seeing any iPads in there, anything resembling an iPad in there. Let's see here. Nothing in the clothes. Anybody sees an iPad, please point it out to me. I don't see anything in there. What about on the TV up here? We got some hair iron. Here's a Pittsburgh jersey. Looks like here's the bed. Nope. I'm not seeing anything. Where's this iPad? The defense is really questioning, where she was at with it, her location of this thing. They secured the crime scene once they arrived. They never let the roommates go back into the crime scene, so she wouldn't have been able to go in there after the fact and retrieve her iPad, because that would have been against all policy. We've never seen it in any report. So where is this iPad at? I'm just not seeing it. Is there anything down here? Nothing. There's a cord that with a little charging block that goes to a light. Huh. No, is it in this Nope. No iPad. Man. So if her iPad isn't in her bedroom, and is it behind the TV here? I don't see any iPad. There's a water bottle. There's no iPad. So if her iPad isn't in her bedroom, we obviously didn't see her holding an iPad during the interaction with law enforcement during the 911 call. And the defense is really focusing in on her iPad and the location of it. The only thing that I can conclude from all of this is she must have left that iPad at her friend's place over there at the Whites when they left that house and went there in between the atrocity and the 911 call. No wonder she was standing so far away. She didn't want to go back over there. This is what is so interesting about this case. This has been one of the most followed cases ever. People have followed this case since the beginning. There's so many people out there that keep saying, why don't we just leave this thing alone? It's over. It's over. Even though that they haven't unsealed court documents from 3 years worth of court documents that we've all been wondering about forever. What's really strange is this last batch of court documents that were unsealed has some really interesting information in there that we've never known before. I've yet to see one mainstream moron report on it. Normally, everything that's unsealed, there's always some action. I haven't seen anything. So things are it's very strange. But when we see something in the documents about the defense was going to question the location information of Bethany Funk's iPad, and then we look at things like the 911 call and when the officer arrived where Bethany was compared to the rest of them, and it's supposed to be for an unconscious individual, give me a break. They didn't know what happened till after law enforcement got there. Yeah, right. That's why Bethany's standing over by the light pole, because she's scared that Xana's up there just passed out because of alcohol and she's not waking up. That would make somebody want to stand, 100 feet away from the place, wouldn't it? Or the fact that she knew exactly what had took place, exactly what was in that house, and that's why she wasn't wanting to get any closer than she had to that place. But for people to say, just let this thing go and leave it alone, when you've got things like that and those types of unanswered questions, give me a break. This is the kind of stuff that will drive us all completely batty if we don't get true answers to and clarification of what truly went on in every aspect of this case before this thing is over. So I think even the people out there that think that Brian Koberger did it and everything is on the up and up, they should demand transparency in this thing as well, because the things that we show on a daily basis show that this is the least transparent case that has ever been. I mean, it's so untransparent, it's opaque. You can't see anything. We have to infer everything. We have to look at everything and try to figure out what happened. 3.5 years later, that should not be the case in one of the biggest cases that this country has ever seen. And I think you would agree with me on that. But please let me know your thoughts in the comments below on the information I just covered in this video. I would really like to hear it. And please like and subscribe to this channel. Post your comments, your thoughts, your criticisms, and until next time, Pavarotti's out.